Great to have you there. Hopefully you're doing well. HP Z840. Bit of a monstrosity. Hopefully you're ready for this. We're doing CPU upgrade. So well equipped, very nice machine, able to do pretty much everything you throw at it. You'll notice there are a lot of USB ports on there. We've got a lot of HDMI and display ports, pretty much everything you'd want. Quick look at the rear I/O there, that's quite useful. Definitely take a look at those specifications. Okay, we're moving our way in. As you can tell, it's well populated. Most of the PCI slots are pretty well situated there. We've got a RTX 2070 Super. We also have the Aorus Gen 4 NVMe adapter, so 4 NVMe's are able to fit into that one. Got a USB-C adapter. Z840, one main machine. So what are we doing? We're installing new CPUs, the 2697 V3, two of those. Yes, they are Xeons, and yes, they are powerful CPUs, 14 core, very capable CPUs. Now what thermal paste are we using? Arctic Silver 5 and the limited edition CPU spreader. Okay, part 1, CPU removal. So in the quest of more cores, there's only one way of doing it. You gotta upgrade those CPUs. So current one there, E5-26xx V3, pretty capable CPU. Both of those serve me really well. But going for a quick switch, key thing here, looking for that Torx driver. Very important to be able to loosen out these, and take note of that Criss-Cross pattern. Put a little image up on the side. Later on, that'll really help us to keep track of how to effectively remove and even install these coolers. Oh, lovely music. Hopefully you're doing well out there. Okay, so super important. You'll notice here the Criss-Cross pattern. I'm gradually working my way through, trying to ease off the tension. Once we've got the tension off, just gently pry, and it should come off. Now, what paste is on there at the moment? Well, this is Arctic Silver 5, and as you'll tell from the specifications there, it's a very capable paste. Now, this one's been on there for about 2.5 years, and that does mean it's definitely overdue for replacement. Definitely take a look at that condition there. Now, what application method that I used before? It was the credit card method, but more on that later. For now, getting that second CPU out, definitely take a look at that Criss-Cross methodology. Very important. Ease the tension off gradually and equally. Do the same thing on engine blocks. If it works there, it definitely works on your computer, I think. Okay, let's round this off. Cooler's coming off. And there we go, that one looks hopefully better than the other one. Let's have a look here. Okay, not a lot of paste left there. Where has it run off to? That's the real question. Okay, let's start cleaning this up. So, how can you clean off the thermal paste? I'm glad you asked. There's a very easy way. Anti-static cloth, preferably a clean one. You'll notice mine's super well used. And isopropyl alcohol, great way of getting the paste off. Take note, it is flammable and it is an irritant, so make sure you take protective measures there. And full disclaimer there, you're on your own on that one. Take your own precautions, very important. Okay, so spray that on very delicately. You'll notice just a decent amount there to try and get all of that grease off. Now, do you need to get all of it? I'm going to say yes, especially if you're planning on changing your thermal paste to a different brand. That's very important. Why? Well, they react. It's all about chemistry in there. When we have different elements reacting, you can expect some problems when you combine the wrong combinations. Definitely look for that shine. Okay, so CPU removal. Is it easy to do? Am I a trained professional? Those are the right questions. I guess we'll find out. You'll have to make your own judgment. Right there, trying to figure out how the pins work. That's not a good start. Okay, so clearly they don't just press down, you got to push them down and pull them in a little bit. Now, we'll say at this step, it's actually quite important here. You do want to apply a little bit of pressure to that CPU just in case it flicks out. I've had this at least once, and trust me, it's not pretty. You don't want that. Now, I'm tempted to grab it, but maybe it's better to show you guys quickly. Let's zoom in here. Okay, you can definitely see a little bit of separation on that thermal paste, and where is that thermal paste gone? Check out that RAM while we're here as well. 256 gigabytes of very powerful DDR4 RAM. Not the quickest RAM out there, but very, very capable. Okay, let's really zoom in there. Okay, yep, now you can see the oils coming through there. That's definitely started to degrade pretty severely. And that one's looking maybe a little bit better. I assume the rest is on the cooler, but definitely due for replacement. So definitely saw some temperature spikes in Sign Bench in particular, and that's just no good when it comes to actually pushing a machine. Okay, key things for these pins. Yes, you can keep an eye on them. Hopefully they all look perfect. They look okay by my eye. You can straighten them, but it's high risk. So definitely seek out professional help if you decide to do so. Now, same thing for cleaning. The only catch here is don't use the same cloth you used to actually remove or clean the paste. Going for a fresh cloth, as you can tell. Now, can you clean the silver or rather copper terminals? Yes, you can if you're really, really delicate, and in fact it's generally advised to do so because there might be some oil on there, particularly from finger grease. So same principle as before, be very careful on that as well. Discretion advised. Now you may notice there's a bit of a worn area there. That's a little disappointing to see, but again, these things happen, especially under poor storage conditions. So query, maybe that's the case. Now you've seen Murphy's Law feature a few times. If you don't know what Murphy's Law is, do a quick search on Google. You'll figure it out pretty damn quickly. Tell me what you find. Okay, so really, really important here. Aligning that golden triangle. I'll zoom in on that a little bit later again, but take note here. I've seated it. Now just check to make sure that it is well seated before I apply the pressure. If you don't, spaghetti pins. That's right, you heard it here first. You get spaghetti pins. Watch out for that. You do not want spaghetti pins. Okay, so just evenly applying the tension on those mounting brackets. Same process as removal, just in backwards direction. Now definitely take a look at the new properties there for the 2697 V3. We'll discuss that a little bit later again in terms of why I chose those particular models. But very capable, 14 core and 28 thread on each of those processors. So same thing there, you saw on the removal, gentle pressure in the middle of the CPU just in case it decides to come off with the support bracket. Yeah, nice close up there. Let's check out those oils again. So a little bit of degradation. This one does look to be in pristine condition. Look at that sparkle. Excellent. Okay, so next thing here, jumping in, foot cleaning. Yes, that cloth is spotless right now, and so is that CPU. Oh, that's excellent. So very important here, you will notice, especially if you look at under bright light, a little bit of finger marks, maybe a little spottiness or just general grease. You do want to try and remove that, because once it's on the pins, you can't clean it. There's no way. Okay, that does look pretty good. Still a little bit scratched up, but we'll let that slide. Okay, it's very delicate. Yeah, nice little nudge. Make sure it's seated well. Very gentle, of course. And just before we close it up, why not show you guys those triangles? So there they are. Take note. CPU, we have the golden triangle. Motherboard, on the bracket there, we have the golden triangle. Looking at the fitted CPU, we also have the golden triangle. So there's 3 of those golden triangles. You cannot go wrong with this installation. Take note they're opposites between the 2 sides. That's kind of important as well. Okay, so take note there. Do not let these go. That's very risky. You can easily have your CPU fling out. So you want to keep a bit of pressure on them. Be very careful here, and generally advised, don't do this with a camera in hand. That's just not smart. Unless you're a trained professional, in which case that's okay. And yes, definitely read the fine print there. And coming back to Murphy's Law, hopefully you did that Google search, what's Murphy's Law? Well, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So you've got to prepare for that. Or at least that's the advice I would follow. Thermal paste, where hath thou run off to? RACERRRZ 2022. Okay, now that we've sorted that out, onto my spreader. Yes, it's one mean machine. Limited edition, this is the Drifting McLaren F1 version. It's a highly effective, sleek design, silky smooth application, absolutely science-backed N of 1, 100% CPU cooler is the goal, or at least the thermal paste spreading 100% is the goal. Now, lots of methods here, and done lots of research on this. By far, it doesn't really matter how you start this process. You can do a smiley face as well if you so desire. Key thing is getting a thin application that is even the whole way across. Now, I know you've seen lots of videos on this. There are so many different methods, so many, I guess, tutorials on this process, and I guess they're all good to certain degrees. And yeah, sorry about that. Definitely print double-sided next time. Totally not an i-something gift card. That's, yeah, definitely not it. So, very important for spreading, you'll notice here, trying to get even coverage. Okay, the key thing with the even coverage, why does it matter? Why is it important? Well, it's that IHS. Yeah, it's all about covering the IHS to allow effective dissipation of heat onto your cooler. So it really just serves to fill in the fine gaps. It's meant to be microscopic metal that helps to fill any, I guess, imperfections. Now, looking at some of those other methods, yeah, they're great. There is a lot of science going into those, but when you look at the way it's applied scientifically, it just doesn't make sense to place one big blob, especially if it's a thermally conductive thermal paste. To me, that just horrifies me. I have seen this exact machine when I received it, and I did the first application. There was thermal paste everywhere. It was literally swimming in thermal paste, and I don't just mean the CPU, everywhere around the CPU. So that's horrifying to see. Absolutely, go for the spreading technique. You actually are quite sparing with the amount you apply, which is quite a bonus. Okay, so very delicate there. You'll notice the footage has been sped up. Not perfect coverage. Forgive me, I did my best. That's like solid 10 minutes worth of spreading, no doubt. Probably less, but you get the idea. Okay, let's try the next one. So very important here, take a look at the amount. I think it's about a quarter of what you see on other channels. Take note of that. Okay, so very gentle spreading here. Oh, that's perfect. Very good technique, well done, well done. Okay, so really trying to get those edges, that's the key here. You will not see that in some of the other methods. They just do not cover the entire CPU IHS. Okay, now if you've got good eyes, you may have spotted a bit of a problem there. More on that later. Oh, that's pretty good coverage. Really good coverage there. Excellent. Okay, try a different angle here. Yep, no, that's good. Okay, so really tough here. Trying to get some of that grease off the highly effective CPU spreader, or thermal paste spreader. Very important there. You'll notice here it gets a little bit dry, but that's okay. As I said, just trying to get some of the excess off the card or the spreader. Now, you'll notice here it gets really ineffective. Basically just removing the thermal paste just about. So keep that in mind. You can actually see when there's not enough thermal paste present. And yeah, as long as that one wire. Seriously. That's right, I do need to remove that wire, and in a future video, it may not be there. Well, technically it's not there anymore. I've finally done something about it. Okay, thermal paste. So technically, yes, putting a big blob is faster. The spreader technique does take ages. Absolutely takes ages, but it does mean you have longer intervals, which could be of benefit. Now, if you've got a keen eye there, you may have noticed some debris fell onto that CPU. In fact, I spotted it before we even started applying the thermal paste, but I left it there just so you guys could see what would happen if you had something there. Who knows, maybe I even planted it there strategically just for the video. I don't know, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But if you look very carefully, you'll see the hair there, and that's as I made a suggestion in my other video, the RAM video. Very important to wear a helmet while you're working on your computer. It just makes sense, right? You don't have any debris falling onto your cooler, like that hair sitting right there. Horrible, horrible thing. Okay, well that looks pretty well spread, minus that. Don't worry, I did find the hair later and I took it off, don't worry. Now, you're probably sitting there with a very keen eye, and you've made the observation that there's no way that's enough grease to actually last 2.5 years, and you know what, you're 100% correct. That wouldn't last very long. There's my little secret. You do both surfaces that actually get mated together. It makes perfect sense. And yes, that does mean this takes a whole lot longer than you probably would have liked. But that's the whole goal, right? 100% coverage doesn't happen by itself. You do have to put a bit of time in, and it's worth it. If you can use this for 2.5 years, or maybe not quite 2.5, it really depends on the usage. This one's worked pretty hard in that time, so I probably should have serviced it earlier. But I do like to overlap my services with a bit of a tune-up. Yeah, sounds like a car advert. Very, very similar. Okay, so spreading this very finely, you will notice some imperfections in the heat plate design. Generally a pretty smooth surface. It's obviously been surfaced all the way down, but there are some grooves and indentations there. So well worth filling those up with thermal paste. Okay, let's see what this looks like. So, very easy here. You just make the two surfaces. Don't apply any pressure. Grab your specialized device. Now notice the amount of tension that I'm placing here and the Criss-Cross. I only just get one of those corners started, maybe a 90-degree or even 180-degree rotation. Then I move to the next one and take a look at that Criss-Cross pattern. Doesn't matter which direction you start or which way you do the Criss-Cross, but I highly recommend Criss-Cross, and take a look at the amount of rotations between switching. It's 90 degrees up to maybe 180. If you're really eager, you can go more, but it's all about getting even tension. So really well worth it. Same with removal as well. Try and really spread out the tension. It's the same thing on engines. Same thing on engines. There's torque specifications. Makes perfect sense to me. Definitely check that out. Highly recommend Criss-Cross method. Okay, well that's looking pretty tidy. You'll notice there the tension, once the screw has reached perfect tension, it won't rotate any further. One of the great things about the HPs, you don't see that on other machines. Or at least not all of them. Yeah, awesome. Let's try the next one. Okay, same process, except I'm going to do it 300 or maybe 200 times faster than I did before. Watch this. That's impressive, I know. If only I could maintain this pace all day long, it'd be great. Okay, it's the same thing, even coverage all the way through. That's looking pretty tidy. Now, I did have some thoughts after I saw this. I was like, oh, did I not cover the silver on the edge, or the aluminium on the edge? I assume it's aluminium. Maybe you need to. You may want to align your CPU with the cooler just to make sure you're covering the entire surface. So I'm pretty confident what I covered there would be adequate, but you may want to check that. It may well be that the CPU extends over and you can use your old CPU. I say old, it's still a pretty capable CPU. Now, third and final tip, the secret method. How do you get rid of air pockets on the CPU spreading technique? Well, you make a smiley face. Well, you can do anything else you want, but I recommend smiley face like that one. Let's focus that. Oh, that's a pretty good smiley face. Nose proportion is a little bit big, but I think that was deliberate. All about that air pocket, right? We don't want any of those air pockets. Okay, here we go, in reverse. Watch the tension carefully, and I'm going to tell you here, pay attention to the image, not to my technique for now. You'll find out why soon. Okay, that image, yep, that's very important. 1, 2, 3, 4, Criss-Cross, all the way, well done. Okay, that was strategic, you just missed the fine detail, but we'll come back to that. Now, somewhere in that process, while I strategically distracted you, I did make an error. Maybe you were resistant to my attempts. Maybe you saw the mistake. If you didn't, don't worry, I didn't see it either. I just kept going until I found out that there was a mistake. So keep an eye out on this. Definitely take a look at the rotation. Really nice. Getting the lighting in here. That's excellent. Yep, no, there it is. That bottom right. You can kind of see it if you look really closely. It's not making any connection with the thread in the motherboard. That is a problem. Look at that. So it just turns far too smoothly, and in fact, if you zoom in, hopefully you've got good eyes, you'll actually see that it's not making contact. Now, it's not very apparent, and there I sort of figure it out. So give it a few threads, nothing happens. Then you know you've done a bit of a blooper there. So then best thing you can do is undo all of the screws, ideally still Criss-Cross. But at this point I didn't know how much tension was actually there, so just released all of them maximally, made sure that the fitment was good. Don't lift it off, that will ruin your entire process. Made sure that I got that front right. Take a look again, just making sure those lock in place. Pretty important. Okay, and then it's applying the even tension. As I said, Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Thankfully the camera was on. You guys got to catch that. Well worth it. A very common issue on these machines. If you don't do the Criss-Cross pattern, you're going to have trouble installing these CPUs, I guarantee it. Tight tolerance, well designed. Okay, so you see there, the rotation continues until we reach that maximal lock. Definitely compare the pressure between the corners, that'll give you a good indication. Okay, that's looking good. Now you're thinking the finish. There's a little bit more we can do. You probably thought of this as well. You've got to check your work. That looks good. Let's check the other one. We'll just make sure that's perfectly tensioned. Highly recommend this if you're building power motors as well. Very good habit again to check those bolts, make sure everything's still seated at the right torque specifications. Yeah, enough car torque back onto this machine. Are we done? Was that easy? Well, it looks like it. Oh, that's excellent. Okay, so very well populated machine, as you can tell. She's pretty full. Really not a lot of space there. Okay, CPU cleaning. Now while I do some cleaning, I'm going to get you guys to check out some recommendations. Here we go. V3 CPUs. Key thing there, watch out for scams. Make sure the model number is clearly indicated and that it has the V3. If it's not a V3, it's probably a V1. You don't want a V1. Okay, scanning through. We are very delicate here. We have three very good choices there in orange. We have two choices in green and one red. Take a look at the TDP. That does tell us a little bit about the power draw. Okay, next one there, the V4s. Very quick through this, you'll have to pause on those regions. Timestamps in the description. So looking through here, similar sort of deal. I included one extra CPU in this one, technically two, and these are all very capable, but definitely note the prices there. Those prices have jumped substantially. Best value on there, probably the 2683 V4, pretty well priced. All the others, pretty expensive. So out of all of those, the 2697A would be my choice. Top recommendation, which is not listed there, is the 2680 V4. That's actually well priced and a very capable 14-core CPU. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Okay, part 4. Let's go through and actually put this thing to the test. Does my thermal spreading technique actually work? Well, let's validate this in a few methods. First one, HP performance. You are probably familiar with this. Very, very powerful ability to basically monitor everything on your HP, including setting the BIOS and being able to record your settings. Now, what is our stress test? Well, stress test is a crazy stress test. Don't do this. We basically were editing this video. I had software running in the background, OBS recording 4K 60 frames, and Cinebench running in the background. Why not? Cinebench multi-core, why not? Yeah, don't do that. Please don't do that again. That was horrible. Now, a few things to note there. Down the bottom, we have the energy consumption. So the 517 watts would be the just after reading, so just the machine on, but not doing anything active, aside from doing everything it's always doing. And on the right-hand side, we have the 702 watts, which was the max sort of draw during this entire process. So that's pretty hungry. Now you'll notice here it's climbing through Cinebench really quickly. It might be quicker than your Threadripper right now. Yes, the footage was sped up. Forgive me for that, but that's just so you don't have to stare at 7 minutes worth of footage. Okay, there's the performance recording. Take a look. Pause the run after about 7 minutes because it started to overheat. Okay, so that's kind of expected, but overall, I'm pretty impressed with that outcome. And do take note there, the GPU has been upgraded since then. We're no longer running the 2070 Super, now to a 3080. Really improved the workflow. Okay, so temperature-wise, it really depends. Right now it's actually sitting at 47, so it depends, but up to about 52. And it can go down to a little bit lower depending on what you're doing. So well done there, make sure you have a good one. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Next one is most likely going to be the installation of that 3080. Keep an eye out for that one. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.